everyone. Welcome to the Leasing Highway, a podcast focused on the heartbeat of the apartment industry. We're so glad to have you with us. We also want to thank the Apartment Association of Metro Denver for presenting this podcast with us. I'm Karen Gladney, one of your co-hosts.
And I'm Ian Andrews, and today we're joined by Darren Everett, who is the president of BLDG Management and a principal of BMC Investment. So thank you so much for joining us today, Darren. And I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background and story.
Yeah, thank you both. I'm excited to be here, and I took a moment to watch some of the other podcasts, and I'm in some really, really awesome company, and found out Jeff Hawks has a beard now. And that's cool.
Who knew?
Yeah, but yeah, just reminded about just the awesome people in our industry, and both of you included, obviously. So yeah, a little bit about me. I didn't plan to be in this business. I think that was kind of a common theme, it looks like, with a lot of folks. That's everybody kind of falls into this. Nobody grows up and says they want to deal with multifamily property management in their career, typically. But I'm from Castle Rock, so I grew up in Denver. Colorado is a special place to me. I travel frequently, and I always, am happy to come home. I'm always like, hey, Colorado is tough to beat. In fact, I haven't found a place better than it yet. So I'm from here. I went to Douglas County High School, went to college at University of Denver, undergrad and grad school, and I've always loved real estate. And I was fortunate enough to get a job right before the economic downturn. I was able to hold that job through the downturn. I fell into land development, which is kind of a weird way to start out in real estate. Not a lot of people, it's kind of a niche part of the overall real estate investment sphere. And I worked for a local gentleman named Lee Alpert, who became my mentor. Lee is a Denver guy, a Denver native, and he self-made and is responsible for a lot of the neighborhoods that people live in today in and around the Front Range. And as part of that process, I learned a lot about what I didn't want to do, which is a lot of local, political and entitlement work. There's a frustrating part of that business that, it takes a long time to get projects approved and through, et cetera. And I always had kind of an eye towards residential real estate. And I liked the rental part of residential real estate. And so when the downturn happened, he said, hey, I'd like to maybe expand my investment portfolio, and I'd like to look at some other ways to grow my business. And Jeff Hawks was actually one of the guys we met with. And Jeff, at the time, this is like 2009, said, you guys should buy every apartment building you can get your hands on, which we didn't. And I kind of chalked it up to the broker trying to sell us exactly. Apartment buildings. But his point was that, look, Denver is, irrespective of where the market is going to be and continue to be a very desirable place where people want to live, and there's not enough apartments to fill that demand. And he was absolutely right. And so at the time too, I had friends living in Capitol Hill, and all the headlines were like, the sky is falling, economic downturn, et cetera. But these apartment buildings were full, and they were living in them because they wanted to be walkable and close to a lot of the cool stuff that Denver had to offer. And so it was kind of an obvious thing. It was like, apartments are good, despite everything else. And as part of that process, I really couldn't get Lee that excited about the concept of owning apartments. I think they were inherently a little messy. Owning a place where a bunch of people live just sounds like a lot of work, because it is. But as part of that process, so he wasn't that excited about investing in apartments, but in comes his son-in-law, my Silver Fox partner, Matt Joblin. And Matt and I started talking about doing deals, and deals meant buying apartments. And, we never really thought about building a business around it. It was just kind of like, hey, let's start this and partner and buy a couple multifamily communities and go from there. So Matt had some really great connections kind of in the investor capital markets space, and got a couple of guys in New York to believe in us. And we had no track record. Neither of us had done multifamily ever. And we had a story, which was like, we're going to buy this stuff. It's going to be great. And look at all these great returns. Kind of what I just told you. Denver's great. But no track record at all. So we wrote a business plan. Literally, it was like a 2-page Word document about buying multifamily communities, I think under 100 units, and wasn't really much more sophisticated than that. And they signed off on that and said, we believe in Denver, we believe in you guys. And so we found our very first community. It's called the Amherst on South Federal. It was called Loretto Manor back in the day. This is 2011. So it took us about 6 months to find a community. And I think it was an 8 cap. So that was pretty high. Today we're buying stuff at like 3s and 4s. But we put it under contract and we said, this is going to be easy. I mean, I went to college for real estate, and it's like a lot of people do this. How could this go wrong? So we put it under contract. We had our investors ready, so we had our equity lined up. But then we went out to get a loan, and we literally got laughed out of every bank conference room in town, where it was like, hey, cool story, guys. Come back when you have some money and a track record. And it's like, well, I didn't think that's how it worked. So we were fortunate enough to get a loan literally at the very last minute for the property. And from Collegiate Peaks Bank local group, very still grateful to this day that they took a bet on us. So we got that lined up, and then we went to take over the property, and one of our main capital partners said, hey, we're going to do this with you, but you guys have to manage yourself. So this is 81 units on South Federal, and again, keep in mind I grew up in Castle Rock and lived a pretty sheltered existence prior to this, and so I had to learn quickly about property management, but again, thought, hey, this can't be that hard. So we're probably like 3 weeks from closing, and I bought a book, Property Management for Dummies. And I read it on the plane.
That's awesome.
And I think I still have it somewhere, but I like highlighted and underlined and, dog-eared, and this is what a make-ready is, and okay, work order, and again, what could go wrong? So we take over, and this is April of 2011, 95% occupied. We walked every unit. We, didn't do a file audit. No one knew what that was, of course. And it was 95% occupied. We're going to keep it 95% occupied. We're going to, renovate it, and we're going to fix it up, and we're going to raise the rents, and we're going to sell it, and we're going to make a profit and move on to the next. And that's how it works. So 4 months in, August 2011, we were 50% vacant. And we made our loan payment that month, but had only $800 in our operating account after the loan payment. And our original business plan was we were not going to personally guarantee any loans, and of course we had to personally guarantee the loan to get it done. So I was like really sweating, and I out of the downturn, you guys probably experienced this. I mean, people got pretty ruined on stuff like this, and so we went back to our investors and said, hey, we need to call some money. I don't know if we're going to make our loan payment next month. And they said, no, if you want to do that, you can put more of your own money into the deal, for which we really didn't have any, or you guys can figure it out. So the obvious answer there was we had to figure it out, and we did. And slowly we kind of dug out of that hole. And the option that I learned quickly in this business was you can shortcut, and we can bring the crummy folks back in that, drug dealers happen to pay their rent on time. And they don't fall behind, but bringing that clientele back into the community would have negative long-term consequences, and we wouldn't be able to execute our business plan. So you're really just doing the right thing all the time, pays off in the end. And that's what we stuck to, and we did it. And it became a real success story. The Amherst got nominated by the Urban Land Institute for its, in the influence category. We lost to Union Station. And I was so convinced and so passionate about that project. I had written my at the ULI Awards dinner, like what I'm going to say when Amherst wins, and everybody's like, you were never going to beat Union Station, But the point was, it got nominated, and it showed this isn't an us story, but the impact you can make on a community through multifamily residential real estate. So made about every mistake we could have on that one. We repeated a lot of those, unfortunately, over the years. But that's how I got my start into the business. And, kind of a humble beginning story. And from there, we started acquiring more deals and, managed more properties, and our business grew. And here we are today. So that's my how I got started in the business story.
That is something. I mean, and that was just you and Matt, right, at the Amherst? I mean,
yeah, we had, we were fortunate to team up with a couple of people that knew a little more than us about property management. But I was with Mark Cheddar it was a couple of years ago, and I was telling him some of the creative things we did to get people out, and he's like, "You can't tell me that. Like, you can't." So, in the figure it out category, we had to really figure it out. But the point on that story that I think was became a pillar of kind of how we operated in our outlook on our business was, I saw the worst in people, with drug dealing and prostitution and all kinds of crazy stuff that I'd never been exposed to in life. But I saw the best in people, and I realized, irrespective of your income strata or your education or whatever, like, a community is a community. And one of the coolest things, and it became and is a passion of mine, is the impact our industry can have on where people live and the turnaround and transformative aspect of what we do within communities. So that specific project became a catalyst for improvement on South Federal and crime and, kids going to school and all kinds of things. And it's like, that is really cool. That is what became kind of the passion outlet for me in our space. So we've done that well on some properties. We've stubbed our toe on some properties, but the Amherst was the one that kind of started it all.
Yeah, what a special piece of folklore to have. You talk to companies that have grown and gone through time, and they those initial stories of how you came to be, and that foundation makes such an impact. And too, what an honor to have gotten that nomination. Win or not, just the nomination is incredible for the impact that you ended up making a difference. I mean, that's what we all want to do, right? Is make a positive difference. And what a great way to start out your company. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side to hear more from Darren. So thank you, Darren.
Welcome to your beautiful new apartment home here at Gables Point 14. As you can see, we're featuring this beautiful one-bedroom den.
Welcome back. Some amazing insight and just story there for how you got started there. And I love the fact that you just had to learn and figure it out kind of on the go versus, from the property management side, especially, of just being thrown into it and just figuring it out. I'm sure you took away some different perspective there, rather than, kind of learning the habits of those that are already been in this industry and in that space for a while. So really love that part of the story. And curious from your side, what would you say are some of the reasons for your success and throughout this journey with both BMC and BLDG?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious, and it sounds cliche, but people, and it's all about the people. It's all about the people, and that's that's, when I was giving the Amherst story, the Amherst really took off when we had the on-site team that was all in, that was really operating with purpose out there. I mean, it was kind of the good to great moment, and it really is that same way at every community, and that's obvious. So I kind of, when people ask what I do, it's like I'm in the people business, and how do you foster that, and how do you continue, and how do you stay in that balance where you don't swing all the way to just being this investment company, or you don't swing all the way into just being this only operations culture, but finding that sweet spot has defined the success of our growth, period.
Yeah. That's, people, I like that you say you're in the people business, because they're the foundation of these communities and helping things grow. So speaking of communities and new things going on, you have been in the news for a new community you've got going on in outside of Castle Pines, and would love to hear about it. Talk a little bit about what you guys are doing there and the vision for that.
Yeah. So I grew up in Castle Rock, and I actually worked on the project that it's located in the master plan community is called the Canyons, and I worked on that for the Albert family prior to starting BMC and BLDG. So it's kind of a full circle project for us. But yeah, that's the suburban story obviously has been strong, has been making a lot of headlines coming out of COVID. But the project there is a little bit unique in that it's there's a conventional multifamily community with a single family rental community directly adjacent to it, and they're going to be operated together, kind of a master plan within a master plan, if you will. And going back to kind of how we think about these things truly as communities, and as places where people aren't just living for a short term, but they're hopefully putting down roots in our rental communities. That's really how we're programming it and approaching it. And so even just our amenity facility and kind of how the trails work and how the buildings connect is going to be really unique and really special. So this is one that we're really excited for, and it's obviously our first venture in development outside of kind of Cherry Creek core, if you will.
Well, and really unique too, because it's part of that greater master plan that's going on down there at the Canyons, and that is something.
Yeah, we're grateful that we get a really cool project within a really cool project.
Yeah.
So it's like that's a pretty unique setup.
For sure.
Yeah, I love it, especially too because like you, I'm also a Castle Rock product of Douglas County High School as well, and just really cool to actually being able to develop this space that's where you grew up, and actually see that come to life, and really just have such an innovative approach to it is amazing. So yeah, definitely special for me as well of what you guys are doing there, and love just that innovation and how you guys are approaching it. And, the next question I wanted to throw over to you here is just for what did the next 10 years look like, and what do you envision for the company and on that longer term?
Yeah, a lot of change. I mean, like the first, we call it 1.0 and 2.0. So BMC BLDG 1.0 was kind of our first 10 years, and there was a lot of just figure it out in that process, kind of like we just talked about. The 2.0 vision for BMC BLDG, and I got to give my partners a lot of credit for this. Jeff Stonger, Matt Joblin, and Aaron Little. They've been instrumental in really saying, okay, let's do this in a thoughtful way. Let's set a goal. Let's really take what we've built and make it into something truly great. And so the vision for us is to get to be a much larger organization, and Denver will always be our focus, and home base. But we are going to venture out into other markets. But we're investing more in our people and our team now than we've ever have. And so we're trying to build the infrastructure that we need. We're modeling a lot of cool things off of our peers, many of which have been on this call, and, reaching out to our industry peers more than ever on, hey, what's working, what's not, how are you innovating? Talking to groups like you on, new ways to really innovate with our platform, embrace technology, et cetera. So that's the kind of the new vision, is to not just figure it out, but to do it in a really great and thoughtful way.
Well, I think what's neat is that you also have the hospitality side. You have hotels, and so you've got apartment communities and hotels. Where have you seen crossover from the two, and what have you learned from both and merged with both? I just think that's a really cool dynamic you've got.
Yeah. So the hotels in our portfolio, the ones are that we don't manage them. We partner usually with an operating partner, and I mean, perspective, it's similar but different. And it's a hotel is the hotel model or hospitality model. It's a beast. It's very management intensive. It's very operating intensive. And so I've developed a great deal of respect for our operating partners on those. The service level, I would say, is where the crossover is, and the touch points. And so when we programmed St. Paul Collection in Cherry Creek, we set out to deliver really a hospitality service model. And we did it. We brought it in house, things like concierge, and how we programmed the retail components to be complementary to your living experience or your stay, if you will, was really the crossover there, and doing it in kind of a unique way. I wouldn't say it's completely outside the box, but there is definitely a high touch service model at St. Paul. And then going back, I would say back and forth, the kind of the approach, the community, the thinking about a hospitality project within the context of a greater community, much like you would in an apartment community, is where we've tried to really push our hotel partners on, how do we program this within the context of the neighborhood, not just another property within the Marriott brand or et cetera. So, but yeah, my partner, Matt, I mean, he is really good. I would say he's become really good at the hospitality component of our business. So his new, I would say his passion project is the Clayton Social Club in Cherry Creek, which has also made some headlines. And if you haven't had a chance to check that out, it's really cool.
Well, yeah, and you're doing a membership there, and you've got events that go on there, which to me, when I was looking, that reminds me of on the multifamily side, the resident events and that building, like you just said, community within a community. So really neat to see both of those for y'all.
Absolutely. Let's take one more quick break, and then we'll be back with a couple of final questions for you here, Dan.
Cool.
Meet Drew. She's a photographer living in Chicago and is currently looking for a new apartment. She's found a few places she likes, but isn't sure which one is the best fit. That's when Drew discovered Rent Grata. Rent Grata allowed Drew to talk to Ashley, a resident of the building she was considering. After talking to Ashley, Drew knew it was the right place for her, so she decided to move in. Today, Drew found a new home and Ashley made some referral money. But with Rent Grata, it doesn't stop there. When this conversation data is combined with AI machine learning intelligence, Rent Grata can provide new insights that allow property managers to get a better sense of what renters want. And that means a better renter experience for all. Welcome your residents, reach them with Rent Grata.
Awesome. Welcome back, everyone. Want to change it up a bit here and find out a little more information about what the life of Darren Everett's like outside of work, and what fuels you outside of work, and how do you recharge?
I'm not a very exciting guy. I hear some of my predecessors on this podcast have some pretty cool things they do, but I love spending time with my family. I mean, that is a passion of mine. My kids are getting into kind of sports playing age, so it's all consuming at the moment. But I love that, and I'm one I don't need a lot of like me time, so I roll kind of right out of the office and into the family dynamic pretty quickly.
Yeah, those kids' sports, that could be another full-time job, just going and attending all the different events.
Yes. I mean, I think property management has helped because it's like the logistics component of that. Okay, you go here, you go here.
Right. Delegating. What about a bucket list item or two that you have that you're hoping to hit?
I'd love to travel more. I mean, it's just it's something I think I through the pandemic, and I know a lot of people say this, but it's like you really appreciate your ability to go places, even driving places. So
Mhm.
maybe that's not really just one specific bucket list item, but I'd love to take some more time to travel.
Any favorite places or next best place you'd like to travel that you hadn't gone?
I'd love to go to Europe, and I've lived in the middle of the continental United States and haven't ventured very far from Colorado that often. So would love to make it over there soon.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. So one other question we had here is, what keeps you up at night? What are those things?
Yeah, this hasn't gone away or changed much over the 10 or 11 years we've been doing this, but it's really the on-site teams, thinking about them always. And I've been pretty adamant and entrenched on that really being a defining element of our culture. It's just kind of the on-site component in their daily existence driving a lot of what we do. And so it's, through COVID, obviously it is a challenge. I mean, and you guys have been out to a lot of properties. So it's like you took an already kind of tough job and then you layered on all these other things on top of it. And so, yeah, and the daily changes and whether it be legislative changes or health and safety or pick a thing these days. And then, how they deliver a customer service model in the face of especially a lot of our Class C communities where it's like we're trying to get everybody to pay rent on time.
Right.
So which is in conflict with, delivering great service. And so those are the things that I think about a lot at night and throughout the day.
Your teams are lucky. I mean, your theme throughout this has been people, and you can tell your authenticity about appreciating your people throughout your organizations, and that just makes people want to do more for you. I mean, that's really special, Darren, and an obvious reason why everything's going so well. And we wish you tons of great continued success. Our theme continues a little bit with this people factor. What would your advice be to somebody just starting out in the industry? That doesn't necessarily be on site. It could be in your marketing department or in a service role somewhere. But at any age too, we welcome people at any stage in their career to this industry. What would your advice be to them?
Yeah, I think look, number one, just go get it. Like that's the cool thing about our industry, probably beyond any other industry, is that you can start out as a groundskeeper and be an executive. Like it's, I think
so true.
Our industry really values more of your journey rather than your degree or, where you came from. And I think that's really cool. I mean, I'm constantly humbled by that, where I meet, executives or peers who literally started out as a maintenance tech or a leasing agent or whatever. And so I would say, like, come to our industry, get into our industry, and then pursue.
Right.
And, BLDG has a journey to greatness. And that's something we really embrace, which is like, we'll invest in you, but you got to have the desire to go get it. So that's number one. And then, number two, love what you do. You have to be a little bit of a masochist to be in this space sometimes. And so you really have to find passion in your craft here. And I know you guys do, I do, but it is, Jeff Hawk said, it's not a business for everybody. So love what you do. And number three, get involved in the Department Association. That's something that I've leaned into over the last 24 months. And such amazing people in our industry, and specifically the Department Association. I think they've done a really good job of focusing on whether you're a marketing person or an on-site person, ways to support you in your career. So those would be my three things.
Awesome. Yeah. No. Amazing advice there, and time flies here. It's been awesome hearing a little bit more about your story. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to the Apartment Association for helping put this on and all that they do. So really appreciate your time, Darren, and thanks so much.
Thank you both.
Bye. Thanks.